Alright, we're back and we're continuing this pretty long DAX article that Terry did. Let's see, where did I leave off? It was, alright, here we go. When asked who she thinks was the best guest star she ever worked with, Farrell instantly replies, John Glover, absolutely. He was Verad in Invasive Procedures, the guy who stole my Dax symbiote. He's such a great actor, and I was so psyched that he did our show. He said somewhere that he liked working with me, and I was so excited and flattered to hear that. Her second favorite guest star was Jeffrey Blake, the Trill host candidate Arjun in Playing God, who played Farrell's boyfriend in an earlier series she appeared in, Paper Dolls. Terry Farrell recalls two of her most unforgettable Star Trek moments. The first is sitting in the runabout ride at Star Trek The Experience in Las Vegas and experiencing space travel as Dax might have experienced it. I got jostled around and shot at. Farrell laughs. I didn't have to pretend to react for once. Instead of jumping around and shaking, the ride did it all for me. That was very cool. Her second most memorable moment during her time on the series was sporting Dax's wedding dress in You Are Cordially Invited. I felt like a queen for a day in that dress, Farrell crows. I have to tell you, I never thought that I'd feel so great in red leather, even though it was 104 degrees on the set. I'm 34 years old. I have never been married, and I sometimes wonder if I ever will be. So it was cool to wear that dress and to pretend with a good friend like Michael, who's also not married, that I was getting married. It was like being a little girl again and playing Barbie. Michael was my Klingon Ken, and I was his leather-clad Barbie. And we have a timeline of a lot of the Dax stuff. Jadzia Dax profile. 2341. Jadzia was born a Trill, a race who are able to join with a symbiotic invertebrate being to become that being's host. Throughout her childhood, Jadzia always wanted to become a host to a Trill symbiont and worked very hard at achieving that honor, despite the fact that neither of her parents had undergone symbiosis before her. Invasive Procedures. 2364. As a brilliant student, Jadzia entered into the initiate program undertaken by Trills who wished to become hosts, Dax. Despite her good qualifications, however, the young Trill was rejected from the program by her mentor, Curzon Dax. After this rejection, Jadzia realized that she needed to reevaluate her life and goals in order to successfully complete the initiate program, Playing God. What she did not realize until later was that part of the reason Curzon rejected her was that he was in love with her. And that was in an episode called Facets. 2367. Realizing that he was close to death, Curzon finally gave into Jadzia's wish to become a host, and she was finally joined with the Dax symbiote upon Curzon's death, Playing God. 2369. Jadzia Dax took on the position of science officer aboard Bajorn Space Station Deep Space Nine shortly after Federation representatives were posted to the station, Emissary. 2370. Jadzia nearly died when her symbiont was stolen by a Trill named Verad, who had been rejected from the initiate program invasive procedures. Later that same year, she supervised her first initiate trainee, Arjun, who wished to become a host to fulfill his father's wishes, playing God. 2371, a series of nightmares and repressed memories led Jadzia to discover that the Dax symbiont had once been mistakenly given to a dangerous Trill named Joran, and that this had been kept a secret from subsequent hosts. In order to come to terms with this realization in her past, Dax underwent the Janatara rite of closure, a ceremony in which all the previous hosts of the symbiont possessed the bodies of living beings. All of her friends on the station helped in this ceremony, with Odo taking on the character of former host Curzon. Facets. 2373, Dax found herself becoming more and more attracted to the station's strategic operations officer, Commander Worf, who had recently been posted to the station. While Worf sought to woo Quark's former Klingon wife, Grilka, Dax became increasingly impatient, finally succeeding in winning him over through her familiarity with Klingon culture, looking for Parma in all the wrong places. 2374, Dax and Worf were married in a ritual Klingon ceremony on Space Station Deep Space Nine, attended by all their friends and family. You are cordially invited. Not long after, the couple were sent on an undercover mission together, during which Dax was badly injured and Worf had to choose between his dedication to Starfleet and his wife. Change of heart. That same year, Jadzia Dax was fatally wounded by Gul Dukat when he was possessed by the Pa-Wraiths and died. Before she passed away, however, Dr. Bashir was able to safely extract the Dax symbiote from her body. Tears of the Prophets. And before I go on to the next page, there are some pictures of Dax and stuff, and it says here in this paragraph, this page, scenes from the tragic season 6, final, Tears of the Prophets. Opposite page, top to bottom. Odo plays host to the Dax symbiont's former host, Curzon. Jadzia rekindles a forbidden love with Lenara Khan, playing games of love and war with Worf and looking for Parmak in all the wrong places, and the big day for Dax and Worf, and you are cordially invited. Alright, so the next one, there's some more pictures of Dax. Alright. The conversation turns to Farrell's opinion. Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry about that. Alright, so the conversation turns to Farrell's opinion of the Dax-Worf relationship, which began in earnest with the early 5th season episode, Looking for Parma in All the Wrong Places. I always like the idea of the relationship, she replies. I won't lie to you and say I wouldn't like to have seen more of Dax and Worf this last season. Dax only really had 2 shows, You Are Cordially Invited and Change of Heart, and they were both with Michael. Other than those 2 episodes, not very much happened to Dax this year. I think part of it might have been a strategy. Maybe they wrote me light to see if I would give in and sign a contract for the 7th season, or maybe it's really what Ira said, which is that some years characters get a little lost in the shuffle. Sometimes the writers give a character a couple of big shows and that's it. So I guess I love the idea of Dax and Worf together, but only like the reality of them being together. Fan reaction to the departure of Jadzia has been to wonder at the possibility of the Dax symbiont, which Dr. Bashir successfully extracts from Dax's lifeless body at the end of Tears of the Prophets, winding up in a male body, thus creating an interesting scenario for Worf. I don't see the logic of that happening with Worf's character. Farrell asserts, I think it was enough that he was married to someone who has had past life experiences through being in a male humanoid body. I can't imagine that they'd ever have him with a male character. Now that not that there's anything wrong with that, to quote Jerry Seinfeld, but no way. I just don't see it happening. Also, with Dax gone, there's only one regular character left who's female. If they go as far as to bring a new character onto the show, they've got to give Kira someone female to play off against. They've got to give the female fans another woman to watch. I personally think it would be interesting if they got a beautiful woman like Jeri Ryan, Star Trek Voyager's 7 of 9 on the show, Farrell muses, had Worf feel attracted to her and then had him feel horribly guilty about that attraction. And of course, if she had the Worm in her, she'd have some of Jadzia in her too, and that would be just so interesting. Also, what if this new woman was interested in a Worf, but he just wasn't ready to get involved with someone new because he wasn't over me yet? That would be great. Worf would be so torn. Alright, so this is a pretty long article, and I'm going to do another part and stuff, so I'll be back.